I guess thinking about stress, there's a couple different things to consider. So the first thing is that not all stress is bad.
Mm,
And this is a common misconception when we talk about stress. And people are always are generally fall into like an all or nothing view of stress. But stress is a large group of tons of different experiences that we have. I think the best way to think about it is you divide it into two categories. Category one is what we call eustress, EU stress. And this is good stress that forces us or pushes us to grow, to become stronger, and to develop new skills and adapt and basically become closer to our fullest potential, right? And then there's distress, which is stress that we perceive, or our bodies or minds perceive, as actual threat or perceived threat
mm,
that sets off the fight or flight response in a way that results in displeasure or discomfort or everything to do with distress, which over time causes dis-ease.
right.
And this is something that we've known since Hippocrates times, way back, and also Eastern medicine, has talked about this for a long time in terms of preventative care and using more natural techniques to reduce distress and enhance eustress, which is what pushes us into a growth-focused flow state kind of life. That said, Western medicine has struggled to teach about these terms in a way that we can actually incorporate into our lives. So the goal is to focus on approaching stress from the stand. We can't avoid stress, right? That's the bottom line. It's unavoidable. Stress itself is unavoidable in both categories. What we can do is try to view what comes at us as much in a eustress category as possible, so that we're constantly trying to grow from every challenge that we face, rather than resulting in approaching it in a way that results in development of distress, discomfort, and disease.
I think stress has gotten a bad rap because I think when people think of stress, they think of it, oh, I'm stressed. I'm so stressed out. Like, it's hard for me to think. My sleep's off. I'm anxious. I'm gaining weight. Like, all these negative things that come from stress. But as you said a few seconds ago, we need stress and it's not going to go away. Like, we need to stress our bodies for them to grow if we're going to gain muscle. We need to stress ourselves in a way if we're going to challenge ourselves to become better. We need to put ourselves out there and experience some level of stress if we're going to, ask somebody out on a date or get a new job, like all these things, right? But I think what's happened is, on a primal level, it seems like we've been wired to respond to stress in a way of survival. Like, we're trying to run from a tiger, or we're trying to escape death, which I think is how, if I understand correctly, our brains have been wired to handle stress. But I would also say, in the same context, we've known that, I think, for years, that this is why we respond the way we do when stress happens. But it doesn't seem like, to me, that the way human beings have respond to stress has gotten a lot better. I think, as a matter of fact, it's probably gotten worse over the years. Have you seen that, or do you think it's going the other way, or is it just something that's just, this is just the way it is? Our response to it, like the reaction that goes on in the body, is just, it's biological, and it's just not something that's not going to change potentially for hundreds of years.
Great question. So I think the best way to think about it is that the body, as you said, has evolved. And the body, when I say the body, I mean the body and the mind,
Right.
because the body and the mind are intricately and intimately interconnected. They are not separate. This is a part of medicine that we're also coming back to full circle, which is, now we know if the mind is sick or distressed for an extended period of time, it causes physical distress. If the body is distressed for an extended period of time and not addressed, that causes mental and emotional distress, and that they are therefore intimately connected. So talking about, when I say the body, I mean the mind, body, the whole person. And when we experience stress in certain ways, that in an environment where we have one thing we have to focus on, like I need to deal with the work responsibilities I have right now, and I'm going to take all of my effort available and focus on this work task or this personal development goal or this, or taking care of my family or whatever it might be, and focus on that, then that is the task that then we attribute all of our attentional resources to. At the same time, what ends up happening is it's not just one thing that we have to focus on. It's 100 different things, right? And meanwhile, while all those other things are going on, our phones are going off and beeping, and we're behind on our emails, and we're stuck in traffic, right? And all of these other things are going on. Our kids are screaming in the back seat. And what happens is that there's a part of our brain called the amygdala, which is hundreds of millions of years old, going back to ancient reptiles, which was why we often call it the reptilian part of our brain, which is at the core of the emotional nervous system. And the amygdala is responsible for lots of things, but particularly the best way to think about it is threat versus not threat, threat versus safety. And when we are experiencing lots of overwhelming stimuli in our environment, in the jungle or in the old, ancient world before technology, that would have been a sign that we are potentially in a potential state of threat, because there's too much going on. We need to get to a safe place where we're isolated from all this chaos. It could be a storm. It could be, animals chasing us. It could be a lack of food, water, air, etc. However, we don't often have those same challenges to survival currently. We have, the emails and the too many life responsibilities and the news and COVID and all this other stuff. And so all of those responsibilities and stimuli basically create an overwhelming amount of input to our emotional nervous system, which sets our amygdala, that fear response, to go off when it shouldn't necessarily be going off. So it starts to signal threat, even though we're actually physically safe. We don't have the same real survival threats going on. Maybe they're legal, maybe they're financial, but they're not going to kill us right in this moment. So having that threat response go off in those situations is actually very much disadvantageous to us. And it results in compromised decision-making, compromised performance, and most of all, compromised recovery.
Right.
And so so that's where I think some of these techniques that we talk about, I'm sure that you talk about a lot as well, and basically taking care of yourself helps to build the resilience that allows us to adapt to whatever comes, and not let that fear response turn on, or at least keep the fear response in check so that it doesn't turn on when it isn't needed.